My friends, the Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. John. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, but early in the morning he arrived again in the temple area, and all the people started coming to him, and he sat down and taught them. Then the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery and made her stand in the middle. They said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say?" They said this to test him, so that they could have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and began to write on the ground with his finger. But when they continued asking him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let the one among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he bent down and wrote on the ground. And in response, they went away one by one, beginning with the elders. So he was left alone with the woman before him. Then Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She replied, "No one, sir." Then Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on do not sin anymore." The Gospel of the Lord. Good afternoon. Glad to see you remember to set your clocks ahead. I knew that this Mass would be the largest one of the weekend probably, so we're glad you're here. It's an annual Lenten tradition here at St. Jude that the first graders put on at some point in the weekend and at some point in the season the Stations of the Cross. They help us as a parish to pray the stations, the 14 stops of Jesus on his way to the tomb. And this past Friday was that weekend, was that night that our first graders led us in those prayers of the stations. In the 3 years that I've been blessed to be assigned here, this is something that I've come to look forward to, because it's always nice once in a while to step back to let someone else guide you through prayer, and no one better than our children. And the station that always seems to touch me the most in my heart is the 13th station. Jesus is laid in the tomb. Because you see our first graders, one of them portrays Jesus as lying in the tomb. Then there's 2 guardsmen on each side. And then one by one, until they're all gathered up here in a class, they're sporadically sitting on these steps and in this area, all focused on the child who is portraying the dead Jesus in the tomb. And why it touches me so much is because we know the agony and the suffering that Jesus went through to the cross and now is experiencing that rest in the tomb. But looking at these first graders, of how seriously they not only take what they're doing, but what they're teaching us. What they're teaching us at that moment is 2 things. First is to stay focused. And the second is to see that our life is focused on something in the future. Focused on something in the future. The life of every Christian. If we remember our own lives as Christians as well with their help, we know our calling is the same. We are called to stay focused. Not just to stay focused in the present moment, but to stay focused on something better that will happen in the future. To stay focused on the cross and the tomb for the glory of the resurrection. This weekend's gospel reading, as well as the other readings, tell us of that same theme of staying focused on the future. In particular, we hear this touching story from the gospel of Jesus and his interaction with this woman. But we are taught to go either 2 ways. We are taught to go the way of the scribe and the Pharisee, or the way of the woman. The scribes and the Pharisees were trying to once again to trip up Jesus in his teaching, because they knew full well what they were doing. They were staying focused on the future by their own law, and not on the law of the love of God. And in particular, the scribes and the Pharisees were looking to Jesus to trip him up, because they knew that yes, the Mosaic law still stood, that if a person, a man or woman, was caught in adultery, that they had the right to be stoned. But Now that the Roman occupation of Jerusalem was happening at this time, it was now unlawful for you to take a life of another person. So, Jesus was caught between Mosaic law of the stoning and Roman law that if he would have said yes to them of stoning this woman, that he would have been held liable to the Roman procurator, the Roman governor of the time. And so what did Jesus do? He wrote in the sand. He neither said yes to the Roman law nor said yes to the Mosaic law, in which he said to the woman, which he said to the scribes and the Pharisees, whoever has no sin may cast the first stone. This is very telling for our own life as well, because it is true that sometimes we are the scribe and the Pharisees. We're caught in our own law, our own doctrine, our own understanding, both in our personal lives but in our communal lives. There's many times that we find that temptation gets the best of us, and then we resort to the next step of saying, well, I've now, so what's the big deal? And then there's other times that we also feel that, well, I'm a sinner, I can't be saved. Or even other times of saying, well, I can handle salvation on my own. I don't need Jesus or the church or each other. But what we're reminded in this morning's gospel is that Jesus Christ believes in us. That Jesus Christ believes in us so much that he will give us the grace and the power, if we let him, to overcome any present evil or shortcoming that is in our own life. And that we can't just settle for the present moment. We can't just settle for doctrine or for law. But we have to stay focused. We have to stay focused on what lies ahead, on what is to come, beyond the shortcomings and the tombs of our own sinfulness and our faults, to the glory of the resurrection that only Jesus Christ can offer. My friends, you've heard me say now a couple of times in this Lenten season that Lent is about changing present habits, about changing these present habits for the future, and not getting caught up in our own scapegoating of allowing things to happen. But rather, no matter what happens, no matter the sins we commit, no matter the shortcomings that befall us, that we are called to go to him, the risen one. How many times have we felt unworthy? How many times have we felt that there is nowhere else to turn? And that's precisely what this Lenten season, what this story in the gospel, and what our own life as a Christian is all about. It's about staying focused not in the present moment, but staying focused and keeping our eyes fixed on what is to come. And what is to come is the Easter glory. What is to come is the power that can overcome any shortcoming that we might have befallen before us. And so, as we end this Lenten season in just a few short days, let us be challenged by these words of the Lord once again, that we are not condemned, but we are saved. That we are called to stay focused on what is yet to come and not just in the present moment. And most importantly, to stay focused on the one who on the cross has redeemed all of us and given us salvation, and salvation for the whole world. Stay focused on the good things to come, and may he, in his love and mercy, guide us all onward, this day and always. Amen.